If you don't want to know the numbers, the facts.
All righty,
Just stop talking about it.
we are
Oh, we're live.
adjourned for the, not adjourned, that's,
calling
I'm
to-
premature.
We're calling the meeting
We're
to
calling the
order.
meeting to order, the Public Works 2:30 meeting.
Number
So,
2 first. We should take number 2 first.
Yes.
yes, calling to order, taking number
Yeah.
2 first, yes. All righty, Yasmin, see, yeah. Nawabi, if you'll come to the table. Appointment to the Asian Affairs Commission, filling the policy immigration
You
law
can sit
seat.
anywhere.
Term expires January 1st, 2028, out of Council District 4. Welcome to the table. Would
Thank
you
you
like
so
to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Yasamin Nawabi. I am currently working as a DOJ accredited representative with YWCA Tulsa Legal Department. I'm also a board member of Afghan community in Tulsa. I have been volunteering with various organizations in the city, including B'nai Mona Synagogue, Khan Ohana Foundation, and also YWCA, as well as with Key Elementary School, also with other like Green Light Driving School to help with the community. Also, I'm pursuing my master's degree in law, so I'm a student too.
Great.
Good.
Very good. Do we have any questions or comments? Counselor Victor Wright.
I would just say thank you for your willingness to serve. This is our newest commission, and I appreciate the lens that you'll be able to bring as they are bringing forth recommendations to the mayor and to the council.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, we appreciate you coming today, and we will be the 5 o'clock
On the 11th.
on the 11th.
Which you are welcome to attend, but don't have to when we vote at that
Right.
5 o'clock. But if you do attend, then there's another opportunity. If there's something you want the whole council to know, you could always get up and speak at that time too.
Okay.
Thank you so much for
Thank
coming to the
you.
table.
Thank you.
All righty. Moving on to number 3, resolution authorizing payment of $50,000 to Arlone Washington plaintiff Griffin Reynolds and Associates,
Chair.
attorneys at law, Tulsa Accident Care
Council
Center.
Dutton, would it be okay without objection to move actually 9, 10, and 11 ahead of these so that the folks here can,
We'll wait.
Go on
We're
them,
waiting
or-
for someone else.
Yeah,
is it okay, or do they have to get out?
Some of our presenters will.
They're not ready yet.
yeah.
Oh, they're
Oh,
not ready?
right.
Okay, never mind.
Oh, go ahead and take a seat, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, thank you,
Lost
Counselor Wright.
communication.
Yeah. I was just informed shortly prior to the meeting to reverse that, so. Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have announced that.
We've had several agenda order discussions, but this is your.
Not all of us were included, so I'm
Yeah,
glad
sorry.
we're
Oh,
doing it now.
so now you're in
Thank you.
the now.
Communication training would be on the docket for this summer, I would say.
Okay, so anyway, it's about a settlement from the Seeking Fund as payment or of a judgment and attorney fee award in case number CJ 2022-3335, Arlone Washington versus City of Tulsa et al. Emergency clause. Gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
I saw you.
Chad Becker from Treasury, here to provide assurance that there's a sufficient cash balance in the sinking fund to pay this judgment ahead of the levy placement on the property tax rolls. The judgment has been approved by the court and the mayor, and with council's approval, finance will issue payment to the claimant and forward all the necessary paperwork to the county to levy repayment to the sinking fund over a 3-year period. Sinking fund balance is $82 million as of today, so we're adequately positioned to pay this judgment, and we have city legal here to discuss the case.
Yes, thank you, Chad. Comron Tackmill, City Litigation Division. So this was a motor vehicle accident involving the plaintiff, Ms. Washington, and a Tulsa police officer. The officer received a call, went lights and sirens to respond to the call. He went left of center. Unfortunately, before he went left of center, he did not make sure that the intersection was clear. There was a school bus that was blocking his sight, Miss Washington was turning left, he didn't see her, and they collided. So after investigating, we found that the officer was at fault for the accident.
Okay, I did too. Yeah, Counselor Harper first and then Archie.
Well, see, Tulsa Accident Care Center, that makes sense. What, Radiology Imaging Center, Oklahoma Healthcare Authority? They're listed in the agenda item.
Is that Medicaid
That's
reimbursement?
her medical records that
Oh, okay.
have liens on them, or that she still.
For
has
her
money.
medical,
Yes.
okay. I've just never seen all of those listed like that.
Same for the other ones too.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Archie.
Thank you for the presentation. This question is about the sinking fund, and so it's connected to, I think, the case. Help me understand, the sinking fund is filled with funds from
Property tax.
Property tax.
property taxes. So the lawsuit, just to, in my mind, clarifying, when there's a lawsuit and we pay, it's Tulsa County that is the.
No.
We
We can collect county.
levy the property tax.
They give us
city
the
of
ad
Tulsa
bill,
does.
the property taxes to be in the sinking fund.
The county collects the
Yeah.
funds and then remits the city's portion for deposit to the sinking fund.
Okay. All right, makes sense.
All righty, Counselor Gilbert and then.
Okay, so explain this to me. The officer has lights and sirens on.
Yes.
There we go.
Are we not supposed to yield to emergency vehicles as they are?
We are, but he went left of center into oncoming traffic.
Oh, to go around?
To go around the bus because there was a red light
Yeah,
and
but
all the traffic was
still,
stopped.
are you still not supposed to
Both ways are supposed to
You.
stop.
Well,
stop?
he was not in her sight. So if he was going straight through the light, like if he was. going
Still
through-
left of center.
Not
If he was
left of
still
center,
left
if he
of
was
center
going-
going straight through the light.
If he was going straight through the light and he slowed down to make sure the intersection's clear,
Clear.
which is what you're supposed to do.
Okay.
Then
Procedure.
he would have been
Okay.
okay.
All right.
But when
Because he was
there
left
was
of
there was
center.
security camera footage from a car wash, and once we saw it, the officer did not slow down. He was approaching the red light, immediately went left of center as he went lights and sirens. And so there was like just a second as they collided head-on. So,
Okay.
You would add the,
But,
have a physics phenomenon in order to stop your car in the amount of time that was necessary.
yes, and it was almost simultaneous going
Yeah.
left of center and going lights and sirens.
Yeah.
So that was it was a timing issue basically.
but still, for those people that are listening to this meeting.
Yes.
You hear an emergency vehicle, pull over to the side,
Pull over to the side
Okay.
and make sure you
Yeah.
pull over to the right. if
to
you
the
can.
right, onto the shoulder.
On both sides.
Yeah.
Both
So was he
sides.
driving against traffic when he went left to center?
I'm sorry.
He was then driving against traffic.
He
Yeah.
was driving against
Once he
traffic.
went left to center.
Yes, into oncoming traffic.
All
That's
righty,
the way to have it.
Counselor Bangle.
Question answered, thank you.
Okay, any further questions or discussion? All right, moving on to item number 4. Resolution authorizing payment of $52,500 to Nadine and Shanice Martin, plaintiffs, Griffin Reynolds and Associates, attorneys at law, Optum and Care Family Medical, Oklahoma Healthcare Authority, and Blue Cross Blue Shield of Oklahoma from the sinking fund as a payment of a judgment and attorney fees. Award in case number CJ 2023-3694, Nadine and Shanice Martin versus City of Tulsa et al., emergency clause.
My part's the same, so.
It's the same,
Mr.
so,
Tagma.
so this was another motor vehicle accident involving a police officer.
Lights and sirens?
This one did not have lights and sirens, and that's why we were at fault. So there was a pursuit. This officer was on a parallel street, involved in the pursuit, but he was not lights and sirens. And it was at night, and the plaintiffs were turning into their driveway and didn't see him, and they collided right as the plaintiff was pulling into the driveway.
Okay, do we have any discussion, questions?
Do they happen to be blacked out as they were doing that?
What do you say, blacked out?
No
All
lights.
lights off?
No lights. Headlights.
No, I think he had headlights on, but not
Okay.
lights and sirens.
Okay. Just curiosity question.
Alrighty.
He was pursuing, I guess, well, this is kind of a random, so the person he was pursuing probably didn't know he was pursuing them.
There was a separate pursuit going on one street over, and he was on a parallel street following the pursuit, but was not licensed.
Yeah. Okay.
Alrighty, we get these guys for 2 more items. Number 5, resolution authorizing payment of $25,000 to Virginia Ferguson plaintiff, Warhawk Legal Attorneys at Law, Accident Care and Treatment Center and Southwest Regional Imaging and Radiology from the sinking fund as a payment of a judgment and attorney fee award in case number CJ 2023-1899, Virginia Ferguson versus City of Tulsa et al. Emergency clause.
We have Mr. Martin now joining us from legal to discuss this case.
Hayes Martin, Assistant City Attorney in the Litigation Division. Comron did actually offer to cover it for me, but I decided to take it on my own. Mine, it's an automobile accident. It was a driver, a meter reader for water and sewer. They're at the intersection of 41st and 169. The light turned green. The plaintiff's vehicle hadn't moved yet. Our driver started, rear-ended her, causing her some back injury. And as a result of those facts, we admitted liability for the accident. She had incurred medical costs, and that's kind of how we get to the settlement amount that we're at. She had medical liens from a couple different providers, but her injuries have now resolved.
Okay, do we have any questions, comments? Nope, all right, moving on to item number 6. Resolution authorizing payment of $125,000 to Michael Dickens, plaintiff, Griffin Reynolds and Associates, Attorneys at Law, Tulsa Accident Care, Advanced Physical Therapy, Tulsa Radiology and Imaging Center, and St. Francis Health System from the sinking fund as payment of a judgment and attorney fee award in case number CJ 2023-1446, Michael Dickens versus City of Tulsa et al. Emergency clause.
Again, this was a motor vehicle accident involving a Tulsa police officer. This one, the officer just ran the red light, T-boned the plaintiff. The reason this settlement amount is a little bit higher is because the plaintiff was unconscious at the time that EMSA arrived on scene. And so the medical bills at the hospital were quite high, and fortunately he wasn't insured at the time, so vehicle was totaled and had some lost wages as well.
Alrighty. Was he on his computer at the time taking a call?
I think he was looking down at the computer, and it was at night, and the plaintiff was in a black vehicle, and so just ran the red light and didn't see the black vehicle.
But it had its headlights on though, right?
Had the
black
headlights
vehicle.
on.
Yeah, okay, black, white, it doesn't matter. It's a vehicle. Sorry, Counselor Bellis?
I don't know, I think that covered my question.
Okay.
That you're right at night, but you can't see color. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's what I was just hearing.
Okay.
I said that for Vanessa, who's
Yeah.
cracking up at me right now.
Alrighty, well,
Yeah.
thank you very much. Any further questions, comments? Yep. All right, thank you.
Good job.
Moving on to item number 7.
Sorry, that was a set of lawsuits.
Yeah,
Did those all just come in a row because of planning rulings? Like,
Wow.
resulted at the same time?
Skipped a meeting that week, so some were held over.
Okay.
It's just random timing. There's no rhyme or reason to it necessarily.
Okay, just checking. I know we've had that before where it ends up looking like something's a trend that's not, just because we're seeing them all at once, so, okay.
good question.
Yeah.
Alrighty, number 7, ordinance amending Title 11A, Chapter 2, Section 202, Tulsa revised ordinances increasing the monthly stormwater service charge rate by 12% from $12.22 per month to $13.69 per month, providing an operative, where did I get that word according in that? Providing an operative date of October 1st, 2025. Do we have anybody from?
I'm actually presented for this item, because you previously had the presentation.
Right.
I have a
Yes.
question, I guess, and this is maybe for Sarah Davis at this point. Because one of my curiosities when we've talked about some of these different rate increases had been, right, there's what we need to do as a city, which of course we're not allowed to collect revenue on these, it's supposed to be a break even. So I know that this is a whole, hey, if this is what it costs to do the service, this is what it costs. Knowing people are economically experiencing a lot of hardship, I know this is like really tough decisions for us to make, and I've been trying to get like this view of, okay, there's the different things we're looking at increasing as a city, then there's PSO increases and ONG increases. And I think where we left off, we didn't get, so I was trying to see holistically, like, what would someone's average set of bills look like? Did we get more info from, I saw what you sent me, but it didn't really offer.
I sent an initial and then I sent the additional that I got from PSO.
Right.
So I haven't got questions since what I sent.
Okay, well, I know you said you were kind of looking for, this was on you, it was like some follow-up, because what, I think it was.
asked one follow-up question, but I haven't
Heard that,
received an
okay.
answer to that follow-up.
That was my curiosity, because I think it was the information we
And
got
that
from.
was a PSO, that wasn't actually
That-
anybody.
Anybody else? No, yeah, this was,
Okay.
because what PSO sent over, I wasn't able to, from reading it, translate that into the average person would pay X. It was based on like kilowatts and some other, you know, it was a little like too
In the weeds.
very specifically granular and not a, hey, the average person would pay X a month. So I'm just wanted to like name, I think it's just a little hard to like look at this,
Right.
still be, again, not that we haven't
Wasn't it-
pursued that, I just wanted to know kind of.
Wasn't it $7 roughly on average that PSO wanted the rate increase per month?
I don't,
I don't know, Eric in the water
On
department,
fees.
they have that page at the very back, and I don't know if those are average rates.
but so those were for our city stuff, right? But
But I
wasn't it-
think we're trying to
PSO
see
is-
like a household.
But if I was doing
Yeah.
PSO and ONG, just
No, but
I think it
that's
was
on- but that's-
740 that
That's
PSO
on
was
that
asking.
sheet, so if you take PSO, ONG, cable, other things,
was
then you
on
could.
Oh,
Yeah,
Adam.
it's in that graph
okay, I'll go back and look.
of, I think it's average, and I don't know how they came up with those averages.
You're saying
so
just
you
add
could-
those together if people had all of those on
Yeah,
their
yeah,
yeah.
household budget?
Yeah, because they try to show what the,
Okay.
how the water rates compared to what we pay for cell phones, compared to what we pay on average for electricity.
Okay,
It seems like it's at the end of their presentation.
okay.
Is that
So
right?
this would
PSO
add,
has an increase already
What?
too.
yes.
Yeah, that's where I was kind of unsure about,
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, the other thing is like the LIHEAP,
without like
SNAP
even
benefits
LEWA,
going away,
yeah,
I mean,
it's
there's
not.
just a lot of stressors coming into our constituents' households.
And we don't have as many of those resources that help people do those little bill payment moments that help them make sure they can pay rent too. Again, though, I acknowledge that when we're looking at the rates we're looking at, it's not like it's optional stuff, we're trying to do break evens, so I got that, but.
So this would add $1.47 to the stormwater service fees, and I'm reading right now, but the approval from the Corporation Commission for PSO, beginning January, would have increased rates by $12. And I think it looks like it would also increase some residential by up to 17. Yes.
I think the challenge that we have is we're trying to overcome a decade of no changes that none of us, I don't think, were at the table making decisions on.
Right.
And the other challenge is, right, when water rates change, then constituents can decide, I'm not gonna water my yard, I'll take, 2-minute showers. Stormwater, you can't lessen your stormwater. It's by, you know what I'm saying? And so I do hear back, especially from business owners right now, small business owners, that the stormwater starts to feel out of balance on their utility budget from the city. So I think we're trying to play catch up so that we can do infrastructure.
Yes.
I don't know how well we've communicated that to the public, and I do know for
That's what I
these individuals, it's like, I don't really care, I just am feeling it in my wallet.
Right.
So to what Counselor Bella said, we cannot make a profit by changing these fees. It's really to just get to a place of not having so much subsidy. That we have to be ready to explain it.
This came up, I've had 2 neighborhood meetings this week, and this issue has actually come up, and the problem is, especially as we do infill, and I know we got Paul here, is that you got the stormwaters, we got increased infill, right, density, and it's still 1 inch that's collecting all
Yeah,
that,
more
and it needs
concrete.
to be,
There's no open land
there's
to
no
absorb
place
the
for it to
water.
go.
Yeah.
So we're having issues with retaining walls and sump pumps, and, I mean, it's been just playing whack-a-mole, and I'm trying to simplify it, I'm sure you guys can explain it differently, but to your point, we haven't invested in our infrastructure.
Well, and it's
And
based
whether-
on non-permeable surface as well. Yes, Councilor Lincoln.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, we have done much better in investing in our infrastructure. We've tried to forecast what the investments would be. We're trying to reduce our debt burden or the cost of the debt, which means that we're able to put more pipe in the ground rather than pay somebody in another state or another country to borrow those monies. So the strategy is the right strategy. I just wish it weren't so expensive.
Right.
Plus,
Yeah.
if we don't do this stuff, then we're going to be told to do this stuff.
It'll cost more.
We're gonna have
later
to-
if we don't do
Consent
it.
phase.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, plus we're gonna have to pay the feds a
Yep.
penalty, and we're gonna have to do it on their timeline, not our timeline.
Yep.
So,
Yep, we have to.
you know, the water rates were static for, just like you said, a decade. And,
They are.
you know, that was great for everybody who was living then, who didn't have to pay those additional costs, but it's not good for us now.
Right.
And we're paying the price of them not paying the price.
And I'm sure that included in all that is just also the possibility of cost to do this, replacing these lines, especially in lieu of tariffs coming down the.
Yeah, and on the sewer side, you know, it just rots a lot more quickly.
All righty, any further conversation, comments?
Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks for that, Counselor.
Uh-huh.
Question.
Yes.
So 7, 8, and 9, do you want those to be voted on the 18th, or are you okay with them staying on the 11th?
I mean, because they're aligned to the budget revenues.
I'm personally good.
I'm fine with the 11th.
I'm fine with the 11th as
This
well.
year's schedule.
Yeah. I don't think when we're looking at
Yeah.
reducing things, I don't know.
Still gotta do
Bad news is bad news. Unfortunately, you gotta
Do it a week later or a week
It's
earlier?
very-
Yeah.
Just get it
Let's just
done and
get it
get it
done.
over
Get it over
with.
Yeah.
with.
Bring it over with,
Let's get ready to be bombarded by emails.
we can't sugarcoat it, well, we already are.
Yeah.
Some of us are.
Plus, yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I am too.
The public is welcome to come to comment, for
It's
sure.
true. All righty, moving on to item number 8. Ordinance amending Title 11B, Tulsa Revised Ordinances titled Solid Waste Management, Chapter 5, Solid Waste Rates and Deposits, Section 500B, Rates for Collection and Disposal, making necessary amendments to monthly user fees for certain residential collection services, including standard collection services and premium service, and amending service charges for physically limited services and other charges, providing an operative date of October 1st, 2025. I have a question. Anybody else? No? What is physically limited services?
What is what?
Physically limited services?
If you get a letter from your
Doctor.
doctor that basically says you cannot physically move your cart from the back to the front,
Okay.
then you get the same rate as someone who basically from the front yard. So they'll actually go to the backyard and do that. We just have to
Okay.
have a letter. We have a form that they do. They have to certify, and they basically get the base rate, but yet we give them the backyard service.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
Or wherever they keep their trash.
Wherever they keep their trash. It can be extended backyard or it can be backyard, either one.
All righty. Any further questions, comments, concerns?
Get it done.
Nope. All righty, moving on to item number 9. Ordinance amending Title 11C, Tulsa Revised Ordinances, Waterworks and Sewerage. Oh my gosh, that sounds like a monopoly thing. Amending Chapter 3 titled Water Rates, amending Sections 302, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8, all 300, to provide water and sewer rate adjustments, amending Chapter 7 Sanitary Sewer User Charge System, amending Section 702, 703, and 708 to adjust sewer service charge rates, providing that these rates shall be effective on October 1st, 2025.
I think this is the same thing that the presentations happened a few months ago, so
Yep.
unless there's a question about the ordinance language.
comments? Nope. All righty. Are we ready, James? Okay, we're gonna do 10, 11, and 12 in the same swoop. All righty. Item number 10, ordinance amending Tulsa revised. Do you want me to read them all before we take questions?
So I think we can just say, we're gonna do items 10, 11, and 12. Those three have to do with the projected or the proposed revenue increases or
Okay.
cost recovery efforts as part of the budget. So that was 2.6 million in total. These are three of the ordinances. I think James is here to walk you through those three proposals, and then after each one, there's department-specific representatives who can help answer questions.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and read 10, 11, and 12.
I don't think
You
you
didn't
have
have
to
to.
have
She
to
Okay.
read the items.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
okay, and then, sorry, we can go ahead and let you begin,
Okay.
James.
Well, thank you. James Wagner, Deputy City Administrator. I have Cheryl Black here with me with the Public Works Department. Before we jump into the slides, I want to kind of frame this up first, because we're taking these three we're discussing these kind of together. We'll stop at the end of each one. So I know you all have been talking a lot about the budget today, and so these three items are budget related. They are proposals. They represent proposals that were made by the departments. So the departments that we'll talk about today are Public Works first, and Police and Fire related to the special events fee, and then finally policy with regard to municipal court. But all our revenue is kind of like the key theme that connects them together. As you recall, and I think you've discussed earlier today, departments were asked to submit budget reductions as part of this year's budget in an effort to get to a balanced budget, or revenue that would offset their expenses. And so we spent a lot of time talking about expenses that have been reduced, and so this is really kind of three budget items that are related to the revenue side of that. You've already actually approved some of that. Development Services was here just a couple weeks ago, and I think you voted at the last meeting on some revenue related to the Development Services fees and the Fast Track program and some other things as well. So these are just kind of some additional ones for that. So let me kind of summarize what we're going to talk about today, and in this order. So we're going to start with the right-of-way occupancy fee, which Cheryl will talk about. And this is the fee that utilities and other right-of-way occupants pay to operate within the city's right-of-way. The process for this is determined by an ordinance that's in Title 11. And so Cheryl will kind of walk through how that process works. So that'll be the first, and then we can pause and talk about that one if you have questions. The next one is the special events hourly rate, which is the hourly rate that is paid by special event organizers for police officers and EMT paramedics for special events like parades and runs and that sort of thing. And so we'll talk about the process by which we came to recommend an adjustment of that fee. I'll cover that, and then there are personnel here from Police and Fire that can dive deeper into questions if there's there's questions for those. And then finally, we'll talk about a policy that I believe you've discussed before related to collections on municipal court fines and fees. And so Sherry Harville is here to talk about that. So, as I said, first I think we're going to jump into the right-of-way occupancy fee, and Cheryl has some, and this is a summary slide, so I should have gone to this before. So this is just a summary of the fee part of this. So there's two fees in a policy. The two fees, like I said, is right-of-way occupancy fee, and then the second one is the special events hourly rate. So we'll come back to this, but this is just a summary of the fee part, and then we'll talk about the policy related to municipal court. So I will turn it over to Cheryl to talk about the right-of-way occupancy fee part.
Okay, this first slide, the original right-of-way occupancy management ordinance, Title 11, Chapter 12, was passed in 2001. The objective of Section 1206 of this ordinance is to ensure costs incurred by the city are properly allocated among the various users of the rights-of-way. These costs are for acquiring, maintaining, and managing the rights-of-way. The fee calculation established with the enactment of this ordinance has been consistently applied to all subsequent fee increases. Occupants complete an application annually and report their linear footage in the rights-of-way. They also declare which method of calculation to be used for their annual fees. They can choose to pay by linear footage or 2% of the gross revenue. Occupants that have elected to pay per linear footage include AT&T, MCI, and CenturyLink. Below is the explanation of the cost calculation for the rates per linear foot. We take the operating costs for total arterial management and operating, and then add 20% for indirects and overheads, times the CPI adjustment, and then we take the average of the 5 years, and that's the operating cost. Capital costs, we take the total arterial capital cost times the CPI adjustment and take the average for the last 5 years. Engineering costs, we take 15% of that 5-year average capital cost. Legal cost is 3% increase over prior year, and degradation cost of boring is 3% increase over the prior year. So with these 5 items, we take that total yearly right-of-way costs, and we divide it by the total reported linear footage, and we come up with a cost per linear foot. The next slide represents the actual figures used in both the preceding and the current calculation. You'll notice the biggest change is in the average capital cost, which went from 12.6 million to 34.7 million. And the cost per linear footage are the last 3 numbers on the right. In the next slide, the primary reason for the fee increase in the capital cost. They have more than doubled with the increase of sales tax and bond funds, arterial street improvement funding. So you see that with the graph and the actual capital cost numbers. Occupants were notified of the anticipated cost increase at the beginning of May by email and first-class mail with requests to comment or ask questions. We've only received 1 response, and it was for clarification of the notification. Are there any questions?
Who was that note, who was that from?
I would have to go check. It's been a couple of weeks.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure.
I thought we had to recuse from this anyway.
So if someone was holding an event, this is maybe just a question for the council in general, they could appeal and we could waive some of these fees, or like what's the?
Are you talking
about
the event fees or the right of way?
Yeah, we're still talking about the right-of-way.
Oh, okay, I'm
Once
sorry.
we get to
Yeah,
events,
we'll
I
get
have
to-
something I'll be reading into the record from
Are you
Tulsa
gonna,
Tough.
what a
Oh, we
question?
just got it.
Yeah, we just get, I sent it to her, yeah.
Oh, the Tulsa Tough email?
Mhm.
Do you want me to add you to the?
Sure.
Yeah,
Well, we're not there yet.
but we're not
Right.
there yet.
Yeah.
But for, but
Okay.
for this though, it sounds
Sorry,
like it's
James.
pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah, increasing the cost burden on some of these larger corporations isn't especially challenging.
Right, but the
So,
nonprofits.
carry on.
Well, that's for this special event part.
Sorry about that.
We're still on right-of-way occupancy fee increase.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
It's how they make money.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Yeah.
Are you ready to move on to special events?
yeah, carry on.
Okay, all right.
Okay, here we go.
As I mentioned earlier, so the police and fire departments, as part of their FY26 budget, proposed revenues that are tied to an increase in the special event rate that is charged to event organizers. So, as I said before, this would be for things like runs and parades, really any event that requires traffic control or an EMT paramedic team. So, a little bit of history on this. So this event fee was actually established in the mid-1990s. It was adjusted in 2007, and the way that it is framed in the ordinance is a cost recovery fee. So currently, as it has been since 2007, that rate is $50 an hour. And so it has not been adjusted for essentially 18 years. it's been the same. And so I thought it might be helpful to start with really just looking just purely at what would it look like if you adjusted that fee, the $50 an hour, and you adjusted it for inflation today. So this chart illustrates that if you just took the buying power of $50 and you escalated that to today's dollars, you'd be at $77.36, so a little over $75. And so the rate that has been proposed to adjust to is $75. And the idea there, again, is cost recovery. So the way that it's framed in the ordinance is a cost recovery fee. So let's kind of look at that, though. Let's try to understand a little bit more about what cost is that covering today. So this next chart, what we've tried to do here is illustrate what we're covering today. So the kind of that navy blue color is representative of about 60% of today's cost. Today's cost is $82 an hour for police and fire personnel, and that includes salary and fringe. So that's essentially the personnel hourly rate. On average, it's a little more complicated than that because you have people at different levels working these events. But on average, that's what it's costing the city. And we're recovering about 60% of that at $50 an hour. Now that number, the $82 an hour, does not include other sort of what I would call overhead costs. So things like the personnel in the police department and fire department that organize the people who go and work these events, the special event coordinators. It doesn't include consumables, so supplies, that sort of thing, fuel, for the vehicles and that sort of thing. So the proposal is to increase this really just kind of an inflation-adjusted rate to $75 an hour, which would get us to about 91% of our hourly cost. So still, we're not recovering the entire amount, but we're recovering about 91% of it. So that would be that's the proposal, and so yeah. So that's essentially where we're at, and I think I've got one more here. So. Okay, so that was what I would call the unit cost perspective. So that's an hour of a person's time. So thinking about that, kind of zooming out a little bit, what does that look like from the perspective of what the cost that the city has currently, and then what we're recovering for it. So currently, this is based on calendar year 2024. For the police department, about $634,000 in costs, and again, not including those overhead costs listed at the bottom, and $287,000 in costs for the fire department, so that's EMT and paramedics. We're recovering about $400,000 for the police department. We're recovering about $177,000 for the fire department. The proposal here would get us closer to that, again, not about 90% or so of the cost that the city's incurring. And again, not recovering the cost of there's 2 special event coordinators for the police department and 1 for the fire department. And then again, all the consumables, the equipment, radios, consumable supplies, that sort of thing. So that's the proposal. And again, this is, the attempt here is really just to, match this rate with the inflation adjusted costs.
Okay, we have some questions for this particular. Shall we carry on all the way, or just go ahead and
I think you should probably,
get the questions out of the way?
Sure, yeah.
All righty, we have Counselor Bellis first.
Yeah, it sounds like Malcolm with Tulsa Tough reached out to a few other people. I'm going to try to just summarize what he sent over, and then kind of follow up with a question or consideration, given that events like Tulsa Tough are also big revenue generators, right? They bring in a lot of people, they bring in a lot of the sponsorships, it's a lot of sales tax revenue, a lot of tourism. He highlighted, it sounds like it looks like he specifically reached out to districts 1, 2, and 4, because where his event is, right? But it's the St. Francis Tulsa Tough event. He highlighted that would he's unable to attend, or he would hopes to public comment more in the future on this, but that they're a nonprofit, they operate in thin margins, and this is a question that I would have anyway, because I know for so many of these organizations that put on some of our most valued community events, they're operating in some margins. The bulk of their funding comes from 2 sources, participant fees and sponsor donations. They don't really have the ability to pass any price increases on by increasing their participant fees. He says for them, compared to pure events, they already have a higher price. And across the board, events are seeing declining numbers. participant entry fees increases would be counter to their best interest, and he argued the cities. And that's, in an era of scarce resources when it comes to homegrown events like Tulsa Tough, Tulsa Run, Route 66 Marathon, like that he just, he has concerns about the viability of being able to affordably do these events with these increases. Like, and I know part of this depends on, what they've budgeted in and timing and other things, but that it does seem like it's a big cost burden. But yeah, that, and he also then talked about that, like it ended with, to think that our grassroots local nonprofit could be asked to bear increased special event fees by the very body which forgave the PGA more than $100,000, a for-profit entity whose CEO is paid millions more than our entire annual budget, is offensive. I just had to read that part. Anyway, that was from Malcolm with Tulsa Tough. But to be fair, it is that balance of if these events are harmed, then these events are really core to our community and revenue generation, there's an offset there. And I understand, like, I get that this rate hasn't been increased in quite some time. But at the same time, what that cost is for some of these homegrown events, smaller nonprofit organizations, et cetera, is a big cost burden. And I can understand why he feels that way about the PGA thing. But, yeah, I'm just trying to think of, could this create a different form of lost revenue as well? Or also if we're doing this in one sweep, timing-wise, what that does for these organizations and events budgets is challenging. Like going back to, which I get, we just keep being put in a position where something hasn't increased incrementally over time, and now we're trying to do it in one sweep, but that is really tough on these budgets in the immediate future. Anyway, so I don't know what we want to do with that, but that is like a big thing to consider. I think whenever we've looked at stuff related to a special event permitting and fees, we've often as a body put a lot of careful consideration and thought into that because we know it affects a lot of community members and businesses and large events that we care about. So it's a little hard to look at this kind of rapidly, but
I
yeah.
would like to interject along with what Counselor Dallas just said, that back in 2020, when we had the Trump campaign here, they never reimbursed us back $450,000 for overtime, police overtime. So,
Is
what
that
are we?
right? Is that right?
That's true.
What are we doing?
We were never gonna see those dollars, though.
It's right here.
No, well.
But anyway, so, I mean, these are things to consider as well. I just had to throw that in there.
But Tulsa Tough has Crybaby Hill, and I think we all love that.
And that's
so let's
local,
just-
and that is local, and that also contributes to the revenue. But anyhow, we will move on. Do you have a
Yes.
comment?
Yes, I got the same email as well, read through it, shared it. What do you think, James, about, I see a 60% recovery cost, a 91% recovery cost. Have you considered a 75%? Or some sort of, we're talking about incremental, a tiered step to where, I think what Malcolm and others recognize, we just can't keep it static. But is there a way to sort of, stair step it to where he can bear it a little bit more? I'd hate to lose or reduce those amazing events. And I did know. I was looking at our chief of police, because those sort of, when those bills aren't paid, who is it hurting? It hurts the people locally.
Taxpayers.
That's why some cities have
So we don't, not a rubber stamp. Okay.
All righty. Is that your question?
That's my question. Have
All
you
right.
considered a stair step?
No, again, this is a proposal that was made by the police and fire departments to, get this rate, essentially closer to what it was inflation adjusted. And so, agree, it hasn't been done for a long time, and probably should have been. But as we looked at this, we thought it was reasonable to say, okay, $75, we know is not covering all of our costs, and even at the 91%, isn't covering a lot of those overhead costs for those. I mean, they have full-time personnel that help organize the events in the police and fire department as well. So not to say that couldn't happen, it would just have a revenue impact, obviously, in terms of, covering the costs that the police department and fire department had proposed.
All righty. Next, Counselor Lakin.
Yeah, I was gonna propose the same thing. There's a $263,000 hole that we're gonna have to fill if we don't accept this proposal. So I think some increase is probably reasonable, but we can't just say, hey, surprise, to the PGA or to Tulsa Tough or to anything else. And on the PGA, I was going to respond to Malcolm with this, but I'll respond to him on TV. If Tulsa Tough produced $57 million, then, you know, there could be an offset of revenue. They produce some, for sure, which I'm ultra grateful for. But for any event that's out there, I really, really think that we can't burden them with this, with a 50% increase in 1 year. So I don't know if we stair step this up over 5 years and get to something. If we do it over 5 years, then we have to get to a number that it is going to be at in 5 years. So maybe it's $80. But I am not in favor of moving it up from 50 to 75 this year. Just based upon who we're going to hurt. I'm all for doing it I'm all for replacing and finding ways to fund the $263,000 worth of burden that we're going to not be funding through revenue sources, or not wholly. Like if we move up $5, then there is some offset, but it's gonna be pretty small, 20 or 25,000 bucks, I'll bet.
Alrighty, next is Counselor Bush.
Just for clarification, so these fees do not cover overtime, right?
They do cover overtime.
They do?
They do not cover the full-time personnel that are, like, there's 2 special event organizers, and there is, in the police department, and there's a full-time special event organizer in the fire department. So it's on average, right, because some folks at higher levels would be compensated more, some less, and so this is an average account of that. But it is covering the overtime that they would get. Yes.
For the people that work at, because I remember when my dad was chair of the PGA, he negotiated with the city of Tulsa to pay the overtime back in the day. Was that a separate type of fee than this?
I don't have
Right.
somebody from the police and fire department may know
Okay,
that.
I know,
sure.
you guys probably know the history,
wanna
you
come
worked
up?
it.
I don't know the history specifically to that PGA event. The special events reimbursement rate is for officers that are hired on an overtime basis
Okay.
to work that specific event. So whether that is, blocking an intersection during the marathon or a BOK event downtown, running security, they are not on a regularly assigned shift.
Okay.
There are some events where those regularly assigned officers are deployed to a special event or to help out with certain traffic events. Those are not included in this cost. This is a separate cost. It's billed through the special events coordinator with TPD to the event organizer. So some events like the Chunk campaign where they had a lot of officers come in, the total numbers on those were calculated based on man hours, not just overtime man hours.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, so these numbers are based on a reimbursable overtime for off-duty officers to work the security for the events.
Got it.
I think I'm next, thank you
Yes,
for being at
you
the
are.
table. Was there a time that we were using reserves for less expense than overtime?
We,
I feel like during the
Almost
pandemic,
positively-
the reserves went away.
yes, correct. But our reserve numbers are at 23 right now. When
I
before
know,
we-
because during the pandemic, we were, there was,
There's been lots of
choice,
hurdles, but yeah,
yeah.
they've depleted in numbers, and so their availability.
I guess
is
my
not-
question is there an alternative to paying officers who are coming in on overtime versus reserve corps? I don't know. My question was, what would the comps be to private security so we can make the case for the
So
alternative?
Special
to
events coordinators
Yeah.
have the option to employ their own security
Mhm.
when they do their security plan through applying for their permit with Skipper Bank.
Yeah.
So there are some events that choose to do that.
Right, and I think it's probably more expensive than $75 an hour, or,
No.
no, it's
It's
cheaper?
That's
I think you
that's
can
why they need
do
the
the
option.
sheriff's office for a lot cheaper.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That was my ask on the comps. The question I had too, is there,
That's not my understanding.
There are certain events though that you cannot, you
Right.
have a uniformed officer,
Right.
if you're blocking roadways.
when
or
you're blocking off streets?
Right.
Couple of thoughts. I like the stair step idea for event organizers. It does still create a deficit when we're splitting hairs on expenditures. Has there, well, first of all, I think we have a special event working group of the council, is that correct? Did you all make this recommendation?
No.
No, we didn't.
Did you know, were you asked for a recommendation? Even though you've been
That's the
studying
first I've
this
heard of
issue
it.
for,
We know there are alternative resources, we did look at that specifically about alternative resources.
Okay.
And where the requirements of where officers would be required.
but I mean, you've been studying this issue.
Yes,
So I would recommend that the legislators that have to make budget decisions might be consulted when we're doing deep dives on very specific things. I don't know if you guys talked about rates or what that looks like. I know as an official, we've been asked to, come in and do like a backfill or a reduction. I think we have to get out of that pattern of practice. And then my final question is there consideration at a two-tier type thing so that nonprofit producers with the annual budget of XYZ or based on what the economic impact is, right, to your point? Like, is there a way that we can get at this that's just not flat rate for
formula, yeah.
everyone, like on a formula? I know that's a little more complex, but we do have historical data of, what it generates for the community versus what it costs us to do. And maybe it would be more equitable if we either did it by operationally or on the back end, like a rebate, or, if you meet a threshold of delivering this many dollars to our community. And I'm assuming these dollars go in the general fund and not to like a restricted account. So ultimately, they mostly will pay for overtime for staff in general in the city, because year-end fund balances go to overtime mostly.
and this is 3-hour minimum, right?
For overtime, yeah.
Yes.
Well, and I think this also gets into, based on if this is going into effect right away with the new fiscal year too, that still is a lot of events that aren't having the opportunity to plan for this within their
They
budgets.
plan 3 to 5 years out,
Yeah.
their budgets and their sponsorships and.
There's just a lot of downstream effects.
Counselor Bush, did I miss you?
Oh, yes, it was a great speech. Thanks for asking. Done.
I didn't cross your
Who's
name
on the
out, I'm
small
trying to pay
events committee
attention
here?
here, so.
Especially that,
Special
Okay.
events, yeah.
It's
Alrighty.
3 of you? Who is? So Counselor Archie, which Counselor Q was before you doing this, you were doing that, and then you're doing that, special events.
This is the first I've heard of
Right,
this,
Yeah,
It wasn't,
same.
right.
to be honest.
So
We have discussed resources.
Yeah.
Because that was
And you've looked at it.
one of our biggest
Mhm.
focuses specifically, but if there was a request for increase, it hasn't been
Right,
discussed in
it's
our
not.
working group or even presented to us.
Is there some conversation we can have, given what we talked about here today, like Counselor Lake and Counselor Archie, people were talking about like a tiered approach, that you have some more information that you could maybe come back next week and let us know about, or by email to staff of like what it could look like? I'm imagining you guys have done an inventory of the kind of events that happen, the scale of those events. Historically, we're talking about Tulsatef, we've been doing that a long time. Juneteenth,
Well,
Legacy Fest.
if you're doing that inventory, I would like to see it,
Yeah.
because some events are always left out. And so
Yeah.
I want to make sure that consideration is made. If you don't know about it, if you don't attend them, then you just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so we all need to be.
You're talking about an inventory of
Events.
recurring annual events?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
because everybody doesn't attend
Parades,
every event.
runs.
Yeah, those big ones that we know
Right.
happen all the time. There's always one-offs, like a fun run or something,
Yeah.
Counselor
Counselor
neighborhood block
Gilbert, did you
party.
have
But the
a
annual
comment?
ones.
Hey,
Okay,
James,
Jean.
will James have that? You
I
have
have no
that
idea.
information?
I'm good. I mean, I wanna, well, I do want to go on the record that I am in favor of a step approach
Yeah, okay.
to get us to that point instead of a big old
Yeah.
$25 increase. But also have consideration for nonprofits as
Right.
well.
Okay,
Especially
good.
So,
smaller
yes,
Smaller
especially
nonprofits.
small nonprofits.
Local, yeah. Alrighty, Counselor Hall Harper.
Oh, wait.
Okay, Marissa.
I'm Marissa
sorry.
Gomez, Tulsa City Council staff. I staff the Special Events Working Group. We have an inventory of special events for like the year 2024. But that was put together like manually. It's not data that's easy to pull. So I can get Skipper and see if we can, what he can do now, but it was pretty difficult to pull back then. But we do have that data.
But was it you that put together that data, or was it Skipper?
Skipper.
Okay.
Skipper with Lieutenant Honer, who's
Right,
the
right,
TPD Special Events Coordinator. I don't have access to that.
Yeah.
I
I know we had somewhere in the range of 150-ish special events last year that hired either TPD and/or fire.
We had
That's
talked about
Counselor Harper.
a potential cost recovery.
But
But
nothing
it
put together
wasn't-
as a proposal.
Yeah, nothing as a proposal, and it didn't involve this specifically, so.
Okay, Counselor Hall Harper.
Yeah, what you were saying kind of covered what I was, wanted to bring up, because I was involved early on, but I haven't attended any meetings in quite some time. But I know one of the issues that, and I don't know if it was ever resolved, but who and how the number of officers that's required, because it's not like the people that are organizing get to choose. You know, they're saying you have to have this number.
Right, the formula that
Yeah,
they're using.
exactly, and so I don't know where that ended, but that was one of the concerns. And then, of course, were we able to use, I remember Councilor Q talking specifically about using not only sheriffs and other CLEAT certified, but even the tribal officers, and, because they have a department, that kind of thing. And so I know there was some push and pull on that topic. And so I would just say that we need, that events, planners, they need to have as much opportunity to go outside, because, I mean, it is what it is. When it comes to our officers, they're going to garner the highest wages. And so for those organizations that don't have the $1 million budgets, we need to have options for the smaller organizations, so that they can continue to have, because this is something that can totally just nullify, you just can't have an event.
And we
Right?
did.
And I don't like
And we
like
did
that.
look
Right.
at that.
Because that's a control mechanism
Right.
too.
Focuses
That can be
is
used
about
as a control mechanism.
Additional resources
Yeah.
that didn't necessarily require an officer.
Yeah.
What those additional resources would look like. But in some of these plans, it does require, especially when you're closing streets.
Yeah, I get
And
that.
things of that nature, that's how that formula gets worked out. And Skipper, based upon, correct me if I'm wrong, based upon what is required to control traffic and close that intersection, will be dependent on how many officers are required for that event. So in that special application, there are specific boxes that have to be checked. And when that plan is submitted back to the individual or the event coordinator, they will know how many officers are required as part of that event application. There are also, when we looked at potential resources outside of individual police officers, crossing guards were suggested. And I think we, yeah, I had that same,
I'm
sorry. Am I getting off agenda?
Well,
No, he was answering my
I
question.
mean, we have
Y'all
10,
just down to
15
talk.
minutes till the next meeting, and I'm trying to answer all the
Okay,
questions.
well, I
when
just
are we
wanted,
putting this
let me
back on
clarify
agenda?
this real
Yeah, so-
quick. So we did identify additional resources. We had looked at fire department, fire marshals, people. Chief,
So,
Do you want to come?
if you don't mind.
Quickly, our special events coordinator always works with every event, and he proposes alternate routes to save the money. Sometimes we can change the route of the run significantly, and it reduces their cost. We do, on large runs like the Tulsa Marathon that requires almost 160 officers to secure a 26-mile route, by Oklahoma law, the only people who can stop and control traffic is a certified officer. We hire sheriffs, we hire city security because they're CLEAT certified. We hire outside agencies to assist us because we simply don't have that many men on the day of the Tulsa Marathon to put it. The other thing that the larger runs can do is they can do like other major cities, they can attend a security fee. So they take it, if they have 20,000 runners and each runner pays $2 security fee, it's tagged on their application cost, and that's how they can nullify the cost on their side. Tulsa Fire does the exact same thing. They're constantly pointing out to them the savings that if they use Tulsa Paramedic versus IMSA, there's a significant savings to the special event coordinator. I know you're limited in time. I just wanted to give you a little, we do work with them very closely to try to keep their costs down. Jack Kohner does an amazing job of saying, hey, if you go this way, you still get your 5K in, but you close 5 less streets.
Right.
Require 5 less officers. So
that's kind of both sides of it.
So, Sarah is going to talk to us about the ordinance aspect.
Just a couple of things, this is coming back on committee, I'm guessing, to discuss a tiered approach. Okay, so I think when it comes back on committee, I can do a little summary of an ordinance adjustment we made a couple years ago that Counselor Q sponsored regarding funeral directors and processions. Marissa can summarize some of the things that Counselor Bengal already said in the process improvements, and then we can talk through what a tiered approach would look like at the next committee. So we can bring all of that back at the next committee if that works.
And Counselor Lakin.
I would just put on the table, maybe we figure out just an interim solution, so there is some revenue, some income generated this year for these things. I think that you need a lot of time in your events committee to really think through this.
Yeah.
This is one of those reports that we review in our small budget committee meeting, and we're gonna have outlier events. This is the PGA. So you'll always see the PGA, but in this other stuff is Tulsa Tough and the marathons and everything else. And so I would hope that we would give the big events some kind of consideration, but all these little homegrown events, the ones that we said, well, gosh, I don't know if that is ever gonna go anywhere. And then 20 years later, it's still one of the biggest bike races across the country.
Yeah.
So, you know, how do you balance that? How do you ensure that we continue to get these events and take care of them? And sometimes you have to pay them in order to get them. But you get $157 worth of.
See, that goes back to my original thing, of what kind of
$170
revenue
million
could we lose if we,
Yeah, so
put
you
these
have
events
to,
off, yeah.
it's
a complicated
full
algorithm.
point is, you all need to take a lot of time with it.
But
and
as
we
I
would
said,
entrust that to
We're
you
not.
so that you can-
we're disarmed by this
Yeah.
being presented
Right.
today as
Okay,
well.
Counselor Archie?
Oh, I think, is there anyone after me?
No.
Okay.
Sir.
No,
The final comment.
No, it was, I was just gonna make a.
I'm next.
Oh,
Kidding.
well, no, I was.
I'm just throwing myself on there.
More than happy to participate in the special events, you know, thinking about the tiered approach. And then also, this is maybe a slide, just that, there was also a $700,000 settlement for a lady that was arrested who shouldn't have been. So that entire event was just off
Very
the rails.
expensive.
Yeah, it was just let's reconsider it next time. So,
That's the top right.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just.
That's what I knew
But we
about it.
just
I knew
settled
about
that.
it. I was just
President
in my
There
feelings.
wasn't
about
a
it.
special event request.
Jack, can we sue for our money? Can we sue for our money, our overtime from the Trump administration?
No, as
Or campaign?
Commissioner Roberts indicated, much of that was a deployment, not a special event.
They didn't have a special event permit, I mean, it was.
We still have to pay.
All right,
Okay.
let's keep going.
Yeah, let's move
Not
on
the only municipality
to,
that had that issue.
I know, but
we're
they're suing.
looking now at collections on preset municipal court fines. Carry on, James.
So Sherry Harville with the municipal court is here to present that final item in that batch.
Thank you, guys.
Turn it over to you too, Sherry.
Yeah, on the agenda, it shows to repeal the ordinance, but since then I received a very nice draft of an amended ordinance from Sarah Davis. And I think it's on the right track to fit within what I'm requesting as well. So I wanted to I don't know how much background to give. This is our second time to present this information. I know we have 4 new city councilors. Do you want the background information? I can certainly give you kind
And
of
you
what
have
the.
3, and 1 returning.
So, sorry, 3.
Do you remember this
Do
discussion?
you guys remember the
Counselor?
discussion?
One
It's
emeritus,
about,
not an emeritus.
These are about like unrecouped.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's about the municipal court, they send cases to collections for fines and fees for cases that are adjudicated, which means the cases went before a judge, and he has assessed fines and fees, and then if that person does not either pay their payment plan or they don't show up at that final appearance date, that case can go to collection. But if someone receives a $150 citation, they throw it in the trash, it never goes to collection because it didn't go in front of a judge.
Right.
So the difference is a book to court citation, so when you receive a citation, on the citation itself, it'll say court, or it'll have a dollar amount that you can pay. So those that have a dollar amount that can be paid without going to court, those currently do not go to collection. So with this change in the ordinance, those cases would be authorized to go to collection. State law allows them to go, but our ordinance has the word adjudicated cases, which means it has to go before a judge. That's the main difference. And so when we presented last time, our collection agency came. I did not invite them this time. However, we created a letter, and I don't know if you can put it on the screen.
It's a very nice letter.
Yeah, we created a letter to kind of meet the requests of city councilors. And actually, I'm in full support of all of the information. We have developed so many programs within the court that we have decided with you guys as well to change the letter to provide that information and more thorough contact information, as well as there's a program document that goes over all of the programs that we have within the court that these individuals could utilize if they came into the court, that they're offered to them. So that with those,
That's okay, you keep going.
so that if they have those two items, and then the ordinance was another, the drafted ordinance, I think you have that as well.
I can go to the draft.
Okay, so the only consideration on the draft that I would like to discuss a little bit further is the cap at 25%. So state law allows the collection fee to be up to 35%. Last time we were here, it was 25% is what was recommended by, I think it was Counselor Lakin, and that is what is within the draft ordinance. So you've got that. You guys have the letter. You guys received all of this prior to today, right? So you've had a chance to review it. Okay. So on this letter, within the ordinance, in C1, kind of if you go down, if you go scroll down, C1 asks that we advise defendants who have not previously appeared in the court to enter a plea with respect to the debt the agency is seeking to collect, and that they're waiving their trial rights by entering a plea of guilty or no contest. So there is, we would probably have to amend it a tiny bit to talk a little bit more about the trial rights, but there kind of at the top of the screen, you have the right to enter a plea of not guilty and have a trial. If you want to enter a plea of not guilty, please contact the court directly. And it has our phone number and our email address to contact us easily. On a case that is a preset fine or a non-adjudicated, this would be a required piece that they would have to do before that we would accept payment on that. So that would meet, I believe, C1. And then C3 is advising defendants that they may contact the court directly for cost hearing information about ability to pay. That is also within the letter. Very clearly, it has the phone number and the email address. And then the ordinance here, good, thank you. And on C2, there's a program document that outlines all of our programs that would relate to this collection. I'll let you, Sarah, I know you drafted this, it looks great to me, and I do want to talk a little bit more about the percentage, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to present on your behalf since you wrote it.
Yeah, so, I'm just drafting on behalf of counselors' comments.
And I
who were here
appreciate
last
that.
time. So the ordinance, the primary concern when you're talking about a fines and fees perspective, is that we're not having unintended consequences of our fines and fees. And so on preset fines, someone has not been before a judge and they have not entered a plea. So these are essentially just due process requirements that, as Sherry pointed out, are in your current letter. However, if you want to make sure they're in your letter for all of time, then you need to put it in an ordinance that is a requirement. The other thing is making sure people are aware of all of the programs that you've worked pretty hard to institutionalize in the court, and that the court staff is working really hard on implementing, that people that miss court, who are the people we're trying to impact with those programs, know about these resources and can still avail themselves of those resources, even though they're in this situation. And then there's a couple of state laws regarding ability to pay. And so just because you receive a letter from collections doesn't mean that you're giving up those rights to have those hearings regarding your ability to pay. So it's essentially just putting those things in the ordinance. Like Sherry pointed out, those things are in are in the letter right now with just maybe some very minor wording adjustments. The other thing is to switch that word adjudicated up at the top, which this essentially allows you to send those collection letters for preset fines. And then this is the 25% language, so 35% is allowed by state law. The current city contract is 24%. I do believe we have one of the lowest in the state, if not the lowest in the state by contract. And so the suggestion was made at that November committee to take it to 25. So that is how those ended up.
I would be concerned about 25 being right back here again with the current economic conditions, and I would recommend a 28 to 30% cap, just to cover not being back here in a month or 2 months. We are the lowest, I do believe, in the state, and I think the average is 27 to 28% from my coworkers around other state, other court administrators. So I haven't pulled the entire state of Oklahoma or outside, but we are the lowest that I'm aware of. So when we're back out for bid, it could create competition issues too with the bidding process. If they just know what the amount is, it would not encourage someone to bid 24% either. So we might remove that from that ability for people to be more competitive when they're quoting us in the future. This is a contract that's bid annually. Generally speaking, it can have renewals on it. The current contract we have is good through December of this year, but it does have 3 remaining renewals.
Alrighty. We have Counselor Dr. Wright.
Yeah, so on that contract, what is the annual cost?
There is no cost to us at all. It's 0. It's the 24% that they receive. So we don't actually pay. The citizen that they're collecting the fee from pays.
And what's the pass-through to us on the revenue side then? Because this is a cost what is the projected revenue if we take this action?
So I anticipate that we would receive about one-time revenue of $510,000.
A year or just?
Over just a one-time.
This is
Over-
all looking
Yeah,
back.
one time, because we would bundle everything up
Everything
we
out
have and send it, because we're not currently sending. And then I would anticipate it would go down dramatically from there, 60 to 100,000 per year.
To the
Everything-
city?
Yes.
With no expenditure on the collections?
Correct.
What is I'm looking to Sarah or Jack. If I'm a citizen, I didn't have to come to court, I didn't pay my ticket, it went in the trash, I get this collection letter, I choose not to pay it or can't pay it, don't engage in the alternatives. Is it just like a ding on my credit report, or what does it turn into a warrant?
I actually did some credit research.
They don't.
They don't report this type
Okay.
of, deficiency on your personal credit report. 'Cause that was one of the unintended
Yeah.
consequences we were worried about.
Sure.
And so that is nothing. The issue is if you don't ever appear, you can be arrested.
So you do get a warrant?
And you do get a warrant, and there is a cost, to see if you're arguing on one side of this policy issue. If somebody gets a letter and decides to come to court, maybe there is
Other
a
warrants.
non-arrest.
Yeah.
If they don't receive a letter, they could become arrested, and that is a
Right.
cost to the person and to the city.
Right.
So currently, we do provide a postcard when they
Yeah.
do not appear, just to remind them, just
Right.
so that you're aware of
If you have
that.
the
as
right
a
contact
postcard.
information.
So,
If they gave you the right address.
yeah, I have a question
Right,
in
exactly,
that regard,
yes.
and then I'll
They
get to you.
Sure.
So,
Texting.
my question then would be, it's nice to be able to send the postcards, and we have these preset fines, but I know there are a lot of homeless, unsheltered people that are getting these municipal citations that are pre-set fines, and they are not able to provide an address to get that postcard. They don't have the transportation, and then just one incident, maybe a month ago, an unsheltered individual got 2 preset citations within a 10-minute span, and this is the homeless guy. There's no way that he could have gone to court or paid that or received a postcard. So I'm wondering what the cost offset is in cases like that to the city, and going through this process of the failure to pay or appear notifications, the cost of the reminder postcards, and possibly a warrant. I just wonder,
What do you, I'm sorry, I need a little help okay, yeah.
So I think you're talking like about a bigger picture
Okay.
issue, and that is whether, for individuals who truly cannot pay or are either chronically unsheltered, that, this probably isn't the policy solution
Okay.
for that person. So that's why we have the other programs that are out there to connect those people, because we don't want those people to continually go through the court system. So that's why you've funded special services if they do get to the court system, but that's why we also fund nonprofits that hopefully, and outreach, so that they hopefully get connected that way and they never enter the enforcement system. So lots of different approaches that affect different populations differently, but yeah, this letter's probably not getting to someone that is unsheltered. I do know if someone gets arrested, and there's a collections attached to that, I personally used to argue the collections didn't collect that person and that fee should be waived by the judge.
So, yes, if someone has a case in collection and they're arrested, we immediately recall a warrant, and if they go before the judge, which most cases they would, we would recall the case from collections.
for them to plead guilty.
No,
Or
not
not-
necessarily.
or not guilty.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
point
It's
is,
just an automated process that we go through
if
when
they
they
get
go.
arrested, they're not going to be charged additional funds
Okay.
because their case at one time was in collections.
Well, thank you for that explanation. Counselor Lakin?
Yeah, just really to summarize my position on this, I think it's beneficial to all parties. It will help the court collect so that we can hire more of the staff that we've already heard from in weeks past. I think it's more fair for the individuals as amended. I think these are really important amendments, and I wouldn't support it without these amendments. I'm fine going up to I hate doing it because I think that the contractor will just say, oh, well, they went to not greater than 30%, so guess what my bid's gonna be?
Yeah, gotcha.
But I'm going to take your advice and suggest that we go to not to exceed 30%, just given what the current economic conditions are. But hopefully we'll collect on all of the past and outstanding warrants, I guess, or, yeah, debts, yeah, whatever you want to call it. And then in the future, continue to collect far less, but still give ourselves the ability to go out and have somebody else doing our work that otherwise wouldn't get done.
Thank you for
So,
that. Yeah, there's aside from revenue, that it also assists us because it helps us to close out cases.
Yeah.
For individuals who are deceased or incarcerated, otherwise non-collectible. They notify us of that too, so we can close out cases.
And do we, I think somebody may have already said this, but do we think the number of arrests will go down on failure to appear or failure to pay?
Failure to
I
pay.
mean, even 5 fewer arrests or 5 fewer people going to jail would be worth it to me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You agree?
All righty.
People used to come to court with a collection letter in their hand, which is kind of the best evidence that that's the thing that
Cause them to come in?
Mhm.
Okay.
Now they hopefully come with the
They
postcards.
do, we see them in line with the postcards, it's a
But there were
green
no
card.
postcards when I worked there, so the collections letter came.
Yeah, okay.
All righty, thank you. Moving on to other ordinances in the works.
Yes, just very briefly on this is really not the topic for today, but I did want to make you aware there are a couple more that are not ready to come forward to you all, but that the administration has been talking about. One of those is related to the billing insurance for fire department response to motor vehicle accidents, which several cities in Oklahoma do that. The other one is related to on-street parking rates. There is a study that Asset Management has commissioned. It is not completed yet, but they are most likely going to be recommending increases in on-street parking rates and that as well. So those are not ready, but when they are, we'll bring them forward.
All righty, thank you. Appreciate y'all. Let's move on and get this meeting adjourned. so we can move on to the next one. Number 13, notice to the City Council of approval of a retail revitalization revolving loan fund, small business, RRRLF, to Natsukashi LLC to support the establishment of a restaurant at 12 North Cheyenne Avenue, Gradient Building, requested by the Tulsa Economic Development Corporation. Do we have anybody here?
Everybody's looking around, looking to see who's gonna
Yeah.
present on this.
Is that for the at all restaurant thing they're putting in?
Yeah, so on that, I only know kind of what's in the backup, but, I believe, we'll ask Aaron, you might put it on the next agenda, we'll ask Aaron to come back, he sponsored it on behalf of, I think, Partner Tulsa, but the economic incentive policy requires notice to the council, not a vote of the council, but notice to the council of, these incentive deals on this one. And so I don't know anything about the deal besides what is in backup, but this is the required notice. I think they could put notice on committee. I think they also probably could send you an email for a notice as well. The economic incentive ordinance doesn't say how the notice should come.
What is 12 North Cheyenne? Where
It's
is-
Gradient, it's the new Gradient.
It's Gradient.
Oh,
It's
yeah, okay.
36 degrees
Yeah.
north slash Gradient.
Yeah, but they're
It is,
putting
there's
a,
a restaurant embedded in it. That's what the backup
Okay.
said. So,
Yeah, and
I can pull the backup up, but
I've seen what group I think is
couldn't
supposed to
answer
go
any
in there.
questions
I know
about
it's
it.
supposed to probably go in there.
yeah.
It's like, the group that was doing it all split up into, I think some of them were going to form a restaurant, which I thought that was the site, but yeah, it would just be good to get more information about.
So here's a little summary on,
Oh, there it is, yeah, at all. Okay. It's, Colin, he was a high school teacher at Hale at the same time we were at the junior high.
Oh, yeah?
His restaurant, yeah.
Oh, is this the nonprofit group?
What was that group that does like those pop-up restaurant events, like Japanese breakfast and all that? And like, yeah, he was the chef also at
I know where Gradient
Vintage
is.
for a little bit.
The old Itasco building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Warehouse, yeah. It's really cool
That
inside.
actually sounds good.
We need to
Yeah,
go
no,
tour there.
they're it's an amazing group of chefs and things like that. It's just, without more
Okay, so someone can
information.
bring this back for next
Oh,
week?
yeah.
Or can we just get more
So-
info from them
Yeah, what
maybe
they're gonna do.
about,
so there is no vote on
Yeah.
this.
Is there
Do you
notified?
have,
because it's
after
a
reading
notice.
this, do you have questions that you want somebody to come back and answer?
or could someone just email maybe like, what makes someone, I just wanted to clarify, like, I know there's all these different funds. I don't remember what makes a group qualify for this. That would just be helpful maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I can forward you the policy, and there's 3 provisions in the policy,
Yeah.
that you have to qualify for. I think this one, you have to be within the bounds of, the IDL is one of those locations, there's some other locations to qualify for this fund. And then there's a couple of other items, but it's in the economic incentive policy.
Okay, yeah, maybe if you wouldn't mind sending that out, that would be that's actually my only question, was just
Yeah.
making sure I understood the criteria. And I know it's just as, zero interest loan, but, okay.
Okay, do we have any further questions, comments? All right, moving on to item 14. Application for the allowance of decorative fire hydrants within Kendall Whittier Main Street, an officially designated destination district. The design and color choices for the decorative fire hydrant design must go through the following approvals: Water and Sewer Department, Tulsa Fire Department, Tulsa TMAPC, Arts Commission, and the City Council. Kendall Whittier Main Street is the first applicant of this program and has received all necessary approvals and is seeking the final approval from the City Council.
For this design one.
Yeah, Sam, good to have you at the table.
A lot of
That makes
approvals.
sense. Planning office, it is a lot of approvals, yes.
To paint a fire hydrant. Okay.
So, you'll remember this, Counselor Q actually initiated this with the Tulsa Fire Department, a new program to allow decorative fire hydrants in our destination districts. So this is our first applicant, again, because it has to go through so many heavy reviews. The Kendall Whittier Main Street worked with the Tulsa Art Girls School, so it was created by 5 different young women in the community. And actually the design is an amalgam of several of their unique designs. And so you can see it overlaid there. They have received all necessary permissions, so they have met with Water and Sewer, the Municipal Utility Authority Board, and the Arts Commission, and now it's coming before you for consideration at your later meeting. They are gonna be installing this design on, they have about 40 fire hydrants along their main corridor of Lewis, all the way up to Independence. So they're very excited to get going on that. And if approved, they'll start implementation this fall.
Very cool. I like it. I like the idea. It looks so southwestern.
Yeah.
I love it. Any questions, comments? Nope. Nope. All righty. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Sandy.